Hello students, welcome to Legacy IAS Academy. In today's video, we are going to discuss about the major geographical regions of the African continent. So first of all, to give you introduction about the continent of Africa, of all the 7 continents that we have on the earth today, Africa in terms of area is the second largest in the world, and overall it has an area of almost 30.37 million square kilometer. Apart from that, if we talk about the overall neighborhood of Africa, so in the north it is bound by the Mediterranean Sea, then in the eastern side it is bound by the Red Sea, on the southern and north southeastern side it is bound by the Indian Ocean, and then in the western side it is bound by the Atlantic Ocean. So Africa is surrounded by 4 major water bodies, again Mediterranean Sea in the north, Red Sea in the north, Indian Ocean in the south and east, and in the western coast we have the Atlantic Ocean. If we talk about the overall continent of Africa, it is divided by equator almost in 2 equal halves, and the continent measures all the way from north to south to a length of almost 8,000 kilometers. That is roughly 2.5 times of that of the length of we can say the country of India. And again, from the east to west, it measures about 7,400 kilometers, which is again about 2.2 times the size east-western extent of the India. If we talk about the extreme points of Africa, so in the northern side, the northern extreme point is situated in the Tunisia, which is somewhere in the coastal regions of Mediterranean Sea, and the point is called as Al Ghiran Point, which is situated near the Al Abayad Point in the Cape Blanc region. Similarly, if you look at the southernmost point of Africa, it is in the South Africa, and the point is called as Cape Agulhas. Cape Agulhas is also very popular because it is on the basis of this cape, there is a cold current that flows on the western coast of Africa that is called as Agulhas current. Now, if we try to divide the Africa into major geographical regions, we can divide it into 8 major geographical regions. We have the Sahara Desert, then we have the Sahel region, then we have Ethiopian highlands, then we have the Savannah region, we have the Swahili coast region in the eastern coast of Africa, then we have the equatorial rainforest and the tropical rainforest in Africa, we have the Great Lakes region somewhere in the central east part of Africa, and then we have the southern region of Africa that is called as Southern Africa, which have countries like South Africa, Botswana, Namibia, Lesotho, and all these. Apart from that, African continent landmass has also an island which is situated slightly to the off to the eastern coast of Africa that is called as Madagascar Island. So now we try to understand the physical features of Africa. In the northeast western side, as we can see, we have a long mountain range called as Atlas Mountain. Atlas Mountain actually was part of the earlier Scandinavian Appalachian mountain ranges, but due to continental drift, now it has split apart and stands alone in the African continent. Apart from that, again, the northern part of Africa is largely bound by Sahara Desert. Then we have Nile River, obviously, which is the longest river in the world. Then we have Sahel region. Then we have the equatorial rainforest region in the further south, followed by grasslands. And then we have again desert areas such as Kalahari Desert, Namib Desert in the southern part of Africa. At the same time, in the eastern part of Africa, we have a Rift Valley system that is called as the Great Rift Valley system, made up of East Rift Valley and the Western Rift Valley. And then also we have the Ethiopian highland as we have discussed here on this part. And then we have the river basin, Congo River Basin, that is one of the largest river basins of Africa. So let us try to understand the first region of Africa, that is the Sahara Desert region. So if you look at the map of Africa, Sahara Desert is the largest desert in the world, obviously, in terms of area, and it stretches all the way from the western coast of Africa to the eastern coast of Africa. Or in other words, we can also say it stretches all the way from the Atlantic coast to the Red Sea coast from west to east, and also it extends all the way up to Mediterranean Sea region in the northern part. In terms of major countries that are situated in the Sahara Desert, we have countries such as Mauritania, Morocco, Western Sahara, Algeria, Libya, Egypt, Sudan, Chad, Niger, Mali, and a small part of Eritrea in the east, as well as a small part of the southern Tunisia on the Mediterranean coast. So, if some important points we try to talk about the Sahara Desert, obviously it is the world's largest desert, having an area of almost 3.3 million square miles. To give you an idea about the extent of Sahara Desert, it is almost the same size as the Brazil, which is a South American country, actually the largest country of the entire South American continent. Defining Africa's northern perch, Sahara makes up almost 25% of the area of the continent, and largely it is characterized by four major types of physical features. These four physical features are ergs, rigs, hamadas, and oases. So let us try to understand about these physical features first. Now we talk about ergs and rigs. These are the characteristic feature of a desert region. Ergs is, as you can see from this particular picture, refer to such kind of desert areas where we have long stretches of sand dunes that stretches all the way up to hundreds and hundreds of kilometers with a height of more than 1,000 feet. Such areas are called as ergs, and in these ergs region you will find large quantity of salt which can be sold for the industrial purposes and also for the consumption purposes. On the other hand, the other kind of desert we find in Africa and largely in Sahara Desert is what we call as the rigs. Now, rigs are quite different from the ergs. Ergs are made up of sandy sediment, while the rigs are made up of gravel and sand that make up 70% of the Sahara. This gravel basically look like rock-like structure which can be black, red or white, and rigs are considered to be the remains of prehistoric bedrocks and seabeds that are right now completely waterless. That means the rigs area in the earlier time was occupied by the oceanic water, but now the sea level has receded and it has exposed the stony region, the rocky regions in the Sahara Desert. Then the remaining two characteristic feature of Sahara Desert is what we can call as hamadas. Now hamadas are elevated plateaus of rock and stone that reach as high as 11,000 feet. And the Atlas mountain that we have discussed today is basically a extension of the Hamada region, which stretches all the way from southwestern Morocco to the northeastern coast of Tunisia. Apart from that, the Tibesti mountain range of southern Libya, northern Chad, and the Ahaggar mountain range of the southern Algeria also are part of what we can call as the Hamadas, as you can see from this particular picture. And the most important feature of the desert area, the Sahara Desert area, is what we can call as oasis, which is nothing but a depression where we have the availability of water, often in the form of a spring, wells, or irrigation system. And as far as the Sahara Desert is concerned, about 75% of Sahara's population live in the nearby region of oasis, which make up only about 800 square miles of the desert's vast area. So you can understand that largely Sahara is basically uninhabited region. The only habitation you'll find is in and around the oasis region. Apart from that, talk about the animal and plant lives of Sahara. They have basically adapted to the extremely dry condition of the given region, and that is why you'll find what you can call as the xerophytic kind of vegetation, that is dryness loving vegetation in the Sahara region. For example, the jerboa is one such example of a rodent in terms of animal life that lives here, and the kidneys of jerboa has adapted itself in such a way that they produce highly concentrated urine that minimizes the water loss. Similarly, another important animal, that is dromedary camel, that is found in Sahara Desert region, they also conserves water by changing its body temperature so that it does not sweat as much as it can in the times of the afternoon, especially when the day is very, very hot. So that is all about the Sahara Desert. The second region, just slightly a narrow strip of land that stretches all the way from west to east in the southern part of Sahara, is what we call as the Sahel region. Sahel region largely covers countries such as Mauritania, Mali, Niger, Chad, Sudan, and a small part of Eritrea. Now, Sahel region is what we can call as a type of semi-arid land. It is kind of arid but not as arid as the Sahara Desert. So it is a kind of semi-arid land that forms a transition zone between the Sahara in the north and savanna grassland in the south. Largely, it is made up of flat, barren plains that stretches all along up to 5,400 kilometers across Africa, from the Senegal in the west to Sudan in the east. And the most important part of this Sahel region is what we call as the fertile delta of Niger. If you look at this particular map, you can see we have the Niger River, and the Niger River falls into the Gulf of Guinea in the western coast of Sahel region in the Atlantic. And along with this Niger Delta, you find one of the most fertile soil, alluvial soil of Africa. And it is in this region you'll also find green vegetation, which largely emerges during the rainy season when it is often quickly harvested by farmers or consumed by the animals. Now, Sahel is suffering from what we call as the worst kind of problem, which is referred as desertification. So, unfortunately, what is happening is the Sahel's fertile land is completely becoming desert because of the continuous drought due to climate changes, deforestation that has been carried out, and also intensive agriculture. Not only that, since it is in close proximity to the Sahara Desert, whenever you have strong winds, northeasterly trade winds that blow across the African continent, it brings the sandy particle from the African Sahara Desert and deposit in the Sahel region because there is no such vegetation barrier between these two regions. As far as the animal community of Sahel is concerned, that is because of its dryness. It basically the animals are constantly scavenging for scarce water as well as the vegetation resources. The major type of plants that you'll find here are baobabs, acacia. As you can see, baobab tree, also called as bottle tree, it has a very wide trunk and it stores huge volume water for its consumption in the dry season. Similarly, acacias are other widely found plant in the Sahel region. And then we have a special type of grass, that is a prickly kind of grass, thorny grass, which is called as cram. And this is the main fodder of Sahel animals, Sahel herds such as Jebu cattle. Jebu cattle is a type of species of cattle which is largely reared by the Hausa tribes that live around this Sahel region. The third important region, geographical region of Africa, is in the eastern part of Africa, which is called as Ethiopian highland. If you look at this part of Africa in east, this is the region of Ethiopian highland. Ethiopian highland basically has formed about 75 million years ago due to the volcanic eruption. A huge volume of magma broke through the crust of Africa and then gradually deposited itself and solidified, leading to formation of what we call today as Ethiopian highland. And the dome, this Ethiopian highland dome that has formed 75 million years ago, later on split it apart because of what they refer as a continental divergence. Because now Africa is basically divided into two plates. In the eastern side, what we call is we have a Nubian plate and or Somali plate, and on the western side we have the main African plate. So African plate is splitting apart and Somali plate are stretching apart in two different directions. And due to this, we also see a splitting in the Ethiopian highland due to the pulling of this continental crust, creating what we refer today as the Great Rift Valley system. Due to the accumulation of water in this Great Rift Valley system, large number of lakes has also developed in this area. The Lake Victoria being one of the most important lakes of this region and also one of the largest lakes of this particular region. Today, the valley of this Great Rift Valley cuts across the Ethiopian highland, as you can see from here, from the southwest to the northeastern region. So, as you can see from this particular map, on one side you have this highland, on the other side, you have this highland, and then in between, you have a rift valley system where the accumulation of water has created different types of lake. As far as the mountains of Africa is concerned, Ethiopian highlands are home to about 80% of Africa's tall mountain. In terms of animal life, here you will find ibex, that is the most important animal of this particular region. Apart from that, gibbons are also found here, but the most important or most commonly found animal of this region is what we call as the Ethiopian wolves. The fourth important region of Africa is what we refer as Swahili Coast. Swahili Coast, if you look at the map here, it is a narrow strip of landmass located along the eastern coast of Africa, stretching all the way up to 1,610 kilometers from Somalia in the north to Mozambique in the south. Basically, along this region, you will find also large number of coral reefs and barrier island that has formed due to the deposition of the corals. Swahili Coast, basically, these more vegetated areas are located on the narrow strip just inland from the coastal sand, and heavy cultivation is being carried out in this area because of the coastal location. And due to this heavy cultivation, the diversity of plant species has been quite diminished in the interior part of the Swahili Coast. In terms of the common vegetation that we find in this area, obviously we have the mangrove kind of forest, mangrove kind of vegetation that is found here. Mangrove vegetation refer to such kind of vegetation which basically are found in the coastal regions where you have the meeting of the fresh water as well as the saline water. Now, the mangrove vegetation have a special kind of root system, as you can see from this particular picture. These roots are called as stilt roots because such kind of root network allow the the trees to stand upright even when you have very strong tidal current that is moving through the coastal regions. Such roots are called as stilt roots. Also, apart from that, these roots also have exposure toward the atmosphere, to the air, And due to this, the roots of this plant can directly absorb oxygen from the atmosphere, because in the nutrient poor soil, first of all, oxygen deficiency is found, and also when there is a water that is actually flooding this entire region, you will not have sufficient amount of oxygen for the plants here. So such roots are also called as hostorial roots. So two major types of root we see in mangrove vegetation. We have stilt root, we have hostorial roots that basically allows them to extract oxygen in the poor environment, poor nutrient soil kind of condition. So that is the four major regions of Africa. The four other regions of Africa we'll discuss in the next part of video. So if you like the video, please hit the like button, share it with fellow aspirants, as well as subscribe to our channel for more such content. Thank you very much.